Hello everyone, I am Vivek Agarwal. I am a chartered accountant, company secretary and LLB. And in this video, we will be discussing the disallowances under section 43B, subsection H of the Income Tax Act for delayed or non-payment to the suppliers who are covered under the MSMED Act 2006. We'll start with the case studies first because the video which I am making now is for the benefit of the businessmen at large. So I want to keep it very simple so that it can be understood easily by the taxpayers at large. So we'll directly start with the example and then we'll come back to the provisions. So basically the idea of this section is that we have to first identify what is the due date as per the MSMED Act, and we have to identify what is the date of payment to the supplier. So based on this, we can understand in which year the payment will be allowed and in which year the payment will be disallowed. Please note that the disallowance that we are talking about is not a permanent disallowance. If you are making payment to the suppliers in the next year, then the disallowance will trigger in this year, and next year when you make the payment it will be allowed. So it is not basically a permanent disallowance, it is only a temporary disallowance provided you make the payment to the suppliers. So let us go to the case studies quickly. So for two things, as I told you before, two things we have to identify. One is what is the due date of payment as per the MSMED Act. Second, what is the payment date. Based upon these two dates, we can identify in which year this expenditure would be allowed to you. So coming to the first case study, the first column that we are seeing here, or rather the second column that we are seeing here, is about the due date as per the MSMED Act. The third column is the actual date of payment. So let us see in which year the deduction will be allowed in this case. So due date of payment as per the MSMED Act falls in financial year 23-24. There is a specific way to calculate the due date as per the MSMED Act. I am not going into details for that as of now because the intention of this video is to keep it very simple. So the due date as per the MSMED Act falls in the financial year 23-24. Actual date of payment is also in 23-24. Then for the computation of financial year 23-24, there will be no impact and it will be allowed as deduction in the financial year 23-24 itself. I repeat, you got the due date as per the MSMED Act, which is in the financial year 23-24. You have made the payment to the supplier also in 23-24. Then there is no impact to you. Your computation will remain as it is and the deduction for the purchase or the expense will be allowed as it is in financial year 23-24. So the first example is very simple. Coming to the second example, the due date as per the MSMED Act falls in 23-24, but you are making the payment to the supplier in the financial year 24-25. The due date is in 23-24, but you are making the payment to the supplier in 24-25. Then for the financial year 23-24, this amount of expenditure will be disallowed and it will be allowed in the financial year 24-25. In the first example which we discussed, the due date was in 23-24. You had made the payment also to the supplier in 23-24. Hence the deduction was also allowed in 23-24. In the second example, the due date was in 23-24, but you made the payment to the supplier in 24-25. Hence this will be allowed as deduction to you in 24-25 and not in 23-24. Coming to the third example, the due date as per the MSMED Act is financial year 24-25. Your actual payment date is also 24-25. Let's say the transaction belongs to 23-24, or let's say the invoice date or the date of acceptance is financial year 23-24. So basically, for you to understand in a simple terms, the invoice date or the date of transaction is falling in financial year 23-24. The due date as per the MSMED Act falls in 24-25. And you are making the payment to the supplier within the due date. then it will be allowed as it is to you in 23-24 itself on accrual basis. But if you are not making the payment to the supplier again within the due date, which is falling in 24-25, then it will not be allowed in financial year 23-24, it will be allowed in 24-25. So one thing we have to understand that it is not a permanent disallowance. We are just identifying in which year it is allowed to you. If you are making the payment to the suppliers within the same financial year in which the due date falls, then it is allowed in that financial year itself. If you are making the payment in the next financial year, then you will be allowed that deduction if you make the payment within the due date. If you make the payment after the due date, then it will fall, your deduction will go to the next financial year. So these case studies are very simple to understand. Now we'll go through the provisions also once and then we'll come back to this. So as a businessman, what you have to do is you basically can identify the category of your suppliers. These provisions are not applicable to all the suppliers. These provisions are applicable to a specified category of suppliers. So first you'll have to send a mail to your suppliers asking them whether they are falling under the definition of micro enterprise or small enterprise, because these provisions of disallowance are applicable only to micro enterprises and small enterprises. So you will have to send mail to your suppliers asking them to confirm whether they are falling in the definition of micro enterprise or the small enterprise. That is your step number 1. Now what is the technical condition as per law to identify whether the supplier is a micro enterprise or small enterprise is mentioned here. That investment in plant and machinery, if it is up to 1 crore, turnover is not more than 5 crore, then it is a micro enterprise. Small enterprises are those enterprises where the investment in plant and machinery is up to 10 crore and the turnover is not more than 50 crore. So these conditions will be identified by your suppliers. So they will see their turnover and their investment in plant and machinery and give you a reply that okay, yes, we are falling in micro enterprise or we are falling in small enterprise or we are out of these two definitions. If they are out of these two definitions, then we don't have to worry at all, because this provision of 43B subsection H is not applicable to any other suppliers. It is applicable only to these two categories of suppliers. So step number 1, what you have done, you have sent a mail to all your suppliers asking them to confirm whether they are falling in the definition of micro enterprise or small enterprise. Now out of, let us say, your 50 suppliers, out of 50 suppliers, let us say 15 are falling in micro, 5 are falling in small, so total 20, balance 30, you don't have to worry. So we are discussing only about those 20 suppliers now. Next we have to identify what is the due date of payment as per the MSMED Act. Before that, let us first understand the provisions in sequence now. First, these provisions are applicable for which financial year? These provisions are applicable from financial year 23-24 onwards. That is assessment year 24-25. So the current financial year, which is the financial year 23-24, these provisions are applicable. Second, as we have seen in the example, the case studies, there are two important criteria to identify in which year the allowance of the expenditure would take place. So for that understanding, we have to identify 2 points. Point number 1, what is the due date as per the MSMED Act? So how to identify the due date as per the MSMED Act is this second point. Enterprise need to pay to micro and small suppliers. Enterprise, let us say you will have to pay to your micro and small suppliers within 15 days or 45 days. What is the objective of this para? Second point, to identify the due date as per the MSMED Act. So as per the case studies that we have discussed, to identify this column, due date of payment as per the MSMED Act, to identify this column, we are discussing point number 2. So what is point number 2 here? We have to check whether you are having any agreement with your supplier as to the terms of payment. First step, what you have done, you have sent mail to the suppliers. You have identified which suppliers are falling under micro and small enterprises definition. In our example, out of 50 suppliers, 20 suppliers were falling in that definition. Now, after identifying those 20 suppliers, you will check whether you are having any agreement with those 20 suppliers in terms of the due date of payment to them. If you are not having any agreement, with your small and micro enterprises, then by default the MSMED Act says the due date of payment to such supplier will become 15 days. The due date will become 15 days. Next, if there is a written agreement, the MSMED Act says that you can have a written agreement of more than 15 days also, but not more than 45 days. Let us say, for our example, you have an agreement with the supplier that will make the payment to the supplier within 30 days. That is also fine. 35 days, fine. 45 days, fine. 60 days if you have, then MSMED Act overrules that and says that irrespective of what is mentioned in your agreement with your supplier, the due date for your payment will be restricted to 45 days only. So this second point is a little technical point, and the objective of second point is to identify the due date as per the MSMED Act. So to identify the due date as per the MSMED Act, we are checking out of those 20 suppliers which we have shortlisted, with how many suppliers we have a written agreement regarding the terms of payment, and for how many suppliers we don't have any agreement. In case we do not have any agreement, then the payment shall be within 15 days. This is the due date. If there is a written agreement, then that agreement we can follow provided the due date of payment is not beyond 45 days. So with this second point, we will be able to identify the second column in our case study which we just discussed, this one. Actual date of payment you will already know. Now coming to the third point. If payment is not made within the same financial year of the above time period, so with this you are identifying what? With this you are identifying the due date as per the MSMED Act. You will check whether that due date as per the MSMED Act is falling in which financial year. If that due date is falling in financial year 23-24, let us take another simple example. Your date of transaction or acceptance is, let us say, 1st January 2024. Let us think that there is no written agreement with the supplier. So what is the due date for payment to the supplier? The due date is this one, 15 days. Let's say 15th January 2024 is your due date to make the payment to the supplier. Your date of transaction is 1st January 2024, or the date of acceptance is 1st January 2024. 15 days is 15th January 2024. So MSMED Act says that you should have made the payment to the supplier within 15th January 2024. This is as per the MSMED Act. There is no change in the MSMED Act. It is as it is. The new point which we are here to discuss is about income tax. Now Income Tax Act says that whether you are making the payment to your supplier within the due date of MSMED Act or not is not my concern, provided you make the payment at least within that financial year. So in our current example, the due date as per the MSMED Act was 15th January 2024. So Income Tax Act says that you go to the end of the financial year, which is 31st March 2024. Income Tax Act says what? If you make the payment by 31st March 2024 also, that's enough for me. This deduction you can claim as it is in your computation in the financial year 23-24 itself. But in the same example, when the due date was 15th January 2024, so the due date as per the MSMED Act falls in 23-24 financial year. But you did not make the payment to the supplier in the financial year 23-24. You made the payment to the supplier, let us say, on 5th April 2024, which is financial year 24-25. Then Income Tax Act says that for the financial year 23-24, this deduction will not be allowed to you. For the financial year 24-25, you can claim this as deduction. So in the case study which we have discussed, you have to first identify the due date of payment as per the MSMED Act is falling in which financial year. Next, you have to ensure that you are making the payment to the supplier within that financial year. I'll repeat the example. Your date of transaction or acceptance was 1st January 2024. Due date as per the MSMED Act was 15th January 2024. If you make the payment by 31st March 2024 also, no problem as per income tax. There is no change in your computation, it will be as it is. But if you do not make the payment by the end of the financial year and you make the payment in, let us say, 24-25 financial year, then for 23-24 it will be disallowed and it will be allowed in 24-25. So this second point is about the due date of payment as per the MSMED Act. Third point, if payment is not made within the same financial year, let us say 31st March 2024, the amount will be added to the taxable income in the year of non-payment and will be allowed as expenditure in the year of payment. So as per our discussion, the due date as per the MSMED Act was financial year 23-24. If you are not making the payment within the financial year 23-24, then this amount will be added back to the taxable income in the year of non-payment, which is financial year 23-24. So for the financial year 23-24, it will be added back. And you are making the payment when? On, let us say, 5th April 2024. It will be allowed as an expenditure in the year of payment. It will be allowed as an expenditure in the financial year 24-25. Then 2.2 says that the buyer will be liable to pay interest and all. This is a regular provision as per the MSMED Act. So this clause is applicable to both purchases and all types of expenses also, and registration of seller under the MSMED Act is not mandatory. What we have to check is whether the supplier is falling under the definition of micro enterprise or small enterprise. His registration under the MSMED Act is not mandatory. What is to be seen is whether the supplier is falling in the definition of micro enterprise or small enterprise. So I'll quickly do a recap. First point, this provision as per the MSMED Act was implemented since the year of enactment of the Act, and it is as it is. So MSMED Act provisions are as it is. We are not discussing that in detail. What is new and which is to be discussed is about the disallowance as per the Income Tax Act. So first point, this section 43B subsection H of the Income Tax Act is applicable for the financial year 23-24 also, the current financial year it is applicable. Second, what you have to do is you have to first send mail to your suppliers asking them to declare whether they are falling in the definition of micro or small enterprises. After sending mails, you'll get replies from your suppliers. Now you categorize your suppliers between micro and small enterprises and all other suppliers. The suppliers who are falling under micro and small enterprises, you have to ensure that you are making the payment to the suppliers within the end of the financial year from the due date of payment. So you'll have to calculate the due date of payment as per the MSMED Act. If you want to simplify this further and for a layman's understanding, you can consider the date of invoice. From the date of invoice, you try to make the payment within the same financial year of the invoice, then automatically this provision will be complied. This is not as per law, but for you to understand clearly in a simple language, I am saying this. As per law, you have to calculate the due date as per the MSMED Act and ensure that you are making the payment within the same financial year of the due date. If you are not making the payment within the same financial year of the due date and making the payment in the next year, then for that financial year in which the due date falls, it will be disallowed, and it will be allowed in the financial year in which you are making the payment. So second point, we discussed about how to calculate the due date as per the MSMED Act. Third point, we discussed about what happens if you are not making the payment to the suppliers within the due date, and the case studies we discussed initially. So the due date as per the MSMED Act falls in 23-24. Actual date of payment is also in 23-24. Then it is allowed as deduction in 23-24 itself, no change. The due date as per the MSMED Act falls in 23-24. Your actual date of payment is in 24-25. Then for 23-24 it will be disallowed and it will be allowed in 24-25. This is a simple understanding. So this update might have been received by you already. Anyways, we'll be attaching this link to download this update in the description of this video. You can have a look at this update also, and if any queries, you can let us know. Thank you for watching.